Okay, so in this video, we're going to jump into some animation using Post-it notes, because they're kind of a good way to get a bunch of pages in a row to make more action happen. And I found some stamps, and you can kind of find stamps depending on, sometimes you'll have them around the house, or maybe you go to a thrift store. Sometimes they have a little section for them. Basically, all they are is a little cutout piece of rubber, and if you get a stamp pad and that, and you can make your own stamps. Maybe I'll show you how to do that. But essentially, you take your stamp, and sometimes you got to make sure, test it on a piece of paper so it's not too inky. Okay, sweet. So it seems to work pretty good. So I have this sweet little hand stamp, and I remember what I learned in some of the other videos about going on the lower side of the page. So I want all my action to be below. Here's where the glue is on the sticky notes. I want all the action to be happening closer to down here on the bottom side, or on the side, depending on. So either way, I'm gonna have my maybe my stamp come in from the side of the frame, right? So I'm gonna start over here. And what's nice about using stamps is you don't have to redraw the thing every time. You just have to remember where you stamped it before and move it along. So I just did nearly 5 pages in no time at all. And if you flip it, it's going to look like this. So I'll just kind of continue this here, because it's a pretty big stamp, I realized, for the sheet. That's okay. Could even go back in and add legs. This is just the ability to show motion, right? So now we are fully off the page. We have our hand walking by. So taking that kind of idea, we can also go in maybe with another stamp too. I happen to have a question mark, so I could have either question mark staying right in the middle and then it gets bumped out of the way. Let's try that. So stamps are a really fun way to animate stuff in a kind of a quick way. And you'll notice when I'm doing these, I'm making this question mark move right now. I'm not moving it very far. If I moved it from here all the way to over on the other side, it would look like it's flying real fast. And we can do that. We'll make it move fast. The further you move it, the faster it looks like it's going. So now it's going to look like it's kind of, the question mark's hanging out, and then comes back and then zooms across. So speed and frame rate, time, since we're doing something over time, if you're and depending on how fast we're flicking the flip book, essentially this is what's called the frame rate in a lot of TV and a lot of movies. Usually they're about 24 frames per second. FPS, what that stands for. So if you think about that, that's a lot of frames per second. That's basically going like, let's say this is 30 pages. That's this. And that's why it looks so smooth when you see someone slow-mo jumping off of into the water. But we're gonna kind of slow that number down and think about how fast I flick this, and I say I go maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me go like 7 or 8. Let's just say that's like 8 frames per second. So that means I still have to draw a lot of images. And so if it takes, let's say 1 second for an image of a ball to come from the top of our frame all the way down to the bottom where it squishes. So between here and there, Should take about 1 second. That means we want to draw about 7 pictures in between there. So we got to expand that, and then I would go in there and I would draw each one slightly here, and then slightly there, maybe slightly there, slightly there, and it gets down here. So these are all on their own page. And then once it gets to the bottom, and that will make for a smooth ball dropping. Same thing goes if you're using a stamp, right? If I'm using, you know, and I want to make it look like the you know, here's our O. And I want to make it look like the ball's moving really slow. I have a O stamp. I'm going to go and just move ever so slightly, kind of looking where it was before. Going slowly down. This will be like it's falling sort of in slow motion. And maybe it'll coincide with the hand. We'll see. Or the question mark. And that's what's cool thing about stamps too, is you can overlap them and they end up looking kind of cool. And you can't really go too far wrong. Our ball's still falling. When it lands, maybe we go in and add let's see how smooth that looks. So it can be really time consuming and really kind of a test of your patience, but if you have a good eraser and a good pencil, I'll show you. We can go in, if you don't have any stamps, of course, you can go in and basically you should be able to find a Post-it note. If not, maybe we'll make one we can make our own sort of flippable flip book out of a regular sheet of paper and scissors and a stapler. But your assignment to practice, I think for the first section here, is just to animate a ball. And you can maybe make the ball bounce or pop or explode or turn into another shape, but just starting at the beginning, so you find out where, this is where the sticky stuff is, so we're not going to go up there. And we're going to start our ball somewhere in the middle. And then one thing that's really nice about the pencil is you can draw really hard. So I drew so hard that I can actually see where it was before. So if I wanted the ball to hover in place, I would draw it right there. Since I want it to move slightly, I'm going to look where it was, right there. Okay, and then I'm going to move it down ever so slightly, maybe a fingernail's width. And then I can see that on the next one. So take your time. I'm actually going to have my ball get bigger as it goes too. And also be careful too, one thing people a lot of times do is fold these over too tight, and then they won't flip very well. So you want to just bend it up and keep it bent. If you need to restart, that's okay, but you can also staple them back together if it's starting to behave weird up there, but that is a problem with the flip book technique, or with the Post-it note technique. So my ball is going to get bigger, bigger, but what happens to a ball when it hits the ground? It doesn't just stay round, does it? No. So not only I'll put a little movement marks there, but it squishes like an oval because it's about to bounce. Maybe have it squish one more time and then straighten back out and go up. So let's see how it looks. So practice that, get your balls bouncing, and see how creative you can get.